is that job title?
Oh, we're back. All right, we are back. Apologies, we had some technical difficulties that caused the stream to stop, so we stopped talking until the stream got back on. So, okay, so this is action by county or council. They have to place it on first reading within 60 days, and then they have to take a final reading within 90 days. So it sets them. It sets the, hey, you have to do something within this amount of time, and you have to actually give people a vote, because most of these times when there's an action or something referred, it's a business owner or it's a person trying to build something that they need some finality. And when we talk about, it's not in the charter, but if someone wants to appeal a decision by council, you have to have a final appealable order through an administrative action before you're legally allowed to take it somewhere else. So this is that due process you hear so much about, that you have to go through the process and give somebody finality to then go to the next stage. So that's the first part of it. The second part is I want to say the confusing section, but the thing that I want to walk through a couple scenarios. It says, notwithstanding 411, which you will remember is when you go back to that section of the charter, it's saying anything to pass has to have a majority, has to have at least 4 votes. This is saying, ignore that section for this section right here. No resolution, ordinance, regulation, measure, or order of council which violates, differs, or departs from plan recommendations submitted by planning commission shall take effect unless enacted or approved by no less than 5 members of council. This is to say, in the event planning commission gives a negative recommendation for something, they say, we don't want this, it's not a good idea. This is saying that council has to have 5 votes to overrule that. Now, the inverse, the way I read this, and this is why I was doing the research on it, because this has come up, this has been asked me many times. What if planning commission recommends something and council wants to vote it down? Do you need 5 votes to vote it down? And my reading of this is no. It still only needs, if a simple majority of council members reject it, it's rejected. And my reasoning behind that is this. This is saying that something shall take effect unless enacted or approved. Voting something down is not enacting things or approving things. So this is only applicable in the situation where council is trying to approve something that planning commission has rejected, not vice versa. Any questions on that? Because I know that can be, it's a very legalese argument.
So you're saying if planning commission says yes, council can say no with a simple majority?
Correct.
But if planning commission says no, council can say yes, but needs a super majority?
Yep, they need 5 votes.
Got it.
Has that ever happened?
The council has.
The commission says yes and council says no?
Yes, that happened with the Miller's Landing development. And that's why my research on it is
Okay.
a little bit stronger, because
Yeah.
I was specifically asked this. Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions on that? Because I know it is, I mean, Steve, Zach, and myself have gone back and forth. We've reread it a million times. We've looked through past to make sure we're following past practice too, because like I said, we do have a precedent. If we've done something in the past, we should continue doing it unless there's a significant reason why we shouldn't do it. But that is, when I give you this is my legal opinion of my interpretation, that if a court asked me, how would you as law director interpret, that's how I would interpret that section. Okay. That's the end of Article 10. It's a relatively small section, but it deals with how our zoning ordinances are changed. So moving on to Article 11. This is, if you view, and this is a really dumbed down and too simplistic view, but if you're looking at planning commission it deals with the zoning code and that sort of thing, but most of their business is commercial or large residential developments. they're called major subdivisions under our code. The BZA, which is the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals, that deals with residential properties. So think of issues like you want to put a shed in your backyard, but it's going to violate the setback requirements. This is the board you go to ask for that variance, not planning commission and not council. So it's deals more so with residential, and it's a smaller, but they also have some unique powers that we'll walk through, and we can even talk about instances they've actually been used. But that, just so you know, when you're framing the discussion of what we're thinking about, this is specifically more geared towards residential property owners and individual property rights and that regulation, okay? So it consists of 5 electors, and they have to be from each of the wards, with one member being at large. That way that each ward is represented, but then you have enough to make up for events of ties, and that's why you'll see an odd number on both here and the planning commission. They're 5-year terms and they're staggered. That way you also don't have everyone dropping off at the same time. You have some of that continuity of operation. And then the vacancies, they're saying if there's a vacancy, it's appointed the same way, but they fill the unexpired term. They're not granted a whole new 5-year. And that's to keep that on that same staggered, because you might have random vacancies and you don't want that throwing off that. Any questions on that? All right, similar to the organization, this section just says that the mayor establishes the date, time, and place for the first meeting, but then the Board of Zoning Appeals picks up and they decide when they meet, how they meet. They pass their own bylaws, they have their own bylaws, and they can meet, as they decide. This doesn't have as Zach pointed out, it doesn't have the requirement to meet once a month.
And it doesn't have term limits either.
It does not have term limits, nope.
They do meet once a month, we meet the second Mondays each month. Occasionally, we don't have anything on the agenda, so
You don't have to have.
we don't meet.
And then occasionally we have really long meetings like the next one where there are 9 items to be discussed.
So,
Just to balance it out a bit.
Mm-hmm. All right, so jurisdiction, this is the like what their powers are, what they can hear. And this is pretty unique. It's actually pretty funny because Zach and I had a couple instances where it was brought up to us, hey, we want to use the BZA for this. And we're like, we've never seen that before. But you're allowed to. So these are the jurisdictions. So they have the power to hear and decide appeals for exceptions to and variances, the application of resolutions, ordinances, regulations, measures, and orders of administrative officials or agencies governing zoning and building in the municipality. And they do not have the power to grant conditional zoning certificates. That's a planning commission power. So they can't do that. And they can't grant variances to land uses. So if someone's saying, hey, I want to use my property, but it's zoned this, they can't grant that. But they can, and that's where you see where it says they get variances or exceptions to. That's where the setback says you have to be 6 feet from the property line. Theirs is planning to be 5 feet. They have the authority to grant that specific variance to that setback requirement. So it's for the minor things that you might need or the minor issues that they're addressing, but not necessarily the big conditional uses or the land use variances.
they are very specific to single family variances.
What do you mean by? A couple times I've gone,
Yeah.
there were commercial variances.
So there are a few, there's an instance where if there's a commercial or industrial project that does not require site plan approval, but still requires a variance.
Okay.
Like one example is, we got one coming up where somebody wants to build, stair access on the outside of the building that doesn't meet a setback. It doesn't require site plan approval by planning commission, so that variance can be reviewed by BZA.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's for very minor commercial and industrial projects.
but they can't change a residential property for commercial. Somebody comes in and says, I wanna build
Yeah.
I wanna build a commercial property on my residential property.
That's a planning commission. Yep.
R three, whatever.
Yep.
That would go to planning. Okay, understood. All right.
And I'll say we'll get to it at 11.5, the last section of this. They also, that there's an appeals thing that they can hear various appeals, and we'll get to that. And that's the unique, interesting ones that I wasn't aware of until they kind of came up.
Okay.
But the next section is meeting procedures. This is just saying that they have their meeting, they can pass their own bylaws that states the how they call the meeting to order, that sort of thing. It's a little redundant, in my opinion, to have this, because they have that under the organization that they call the meeting to order, and then they're open to the public. If I was drafting this from scratch, I would say we could probably combine section 11.02 and 11.04 and get the same thing, because that's how it is in planning commission. But this was written 70 years ago, and I don't see a reason to change it because it accomplishes it. But if I were crafting it, I would have crafted it a little bit more.
There's nothing between 02 and 04 that contradicts.
No, absolutely not.
Changes.
Nope. All right, so appeals to the board, 11.05. This is the interesting thing, that that the Board of Zoning and Building Appeals also has the ability to appeal a decision of an official within the city in these contexts. So I'll give a specific example. If the the zoning director says, hey, this doesn't meet criteria, or your use falls under this type of use, so we're going to put it on planning commission for this use, they can say, I disagree. I want the Board of Zoning Appeals to hear my appeal and say, I'm not using it for you. You're saying that I'm using it for use X. I believe it's use Y. And that might be important because use X might be a conditional use where it has to have council approval, and there's different criteria for approving use X. Whereas use Y is a by right, which means they have the right to do it without any variances or any approvals. This gives the authority to appeal a decision made by an official, so that an actual body of citizens can say, all right, we'll hear your argument, we'll hear the argument from the city, and then we'll decide. And this gives the process for that. And we have seen those appeals go forward. There's been 3 in my time here.
Maybe 3.
And is this all related to private property, or?
Yeah, no, because, yeah.
And this is only if that the city says.
Yeah,
whatever,
a city official,
not
yeah.
Something from
Planning commission.
planning commission. So it's
Well,
not an appeal from planning.
It's not an appeal from planning commission.
Okay.
No, it is not an appeal from planning commission.
Okay.
It's explicitly laid out in our code
Mhm.
that council has ultimate authority over planning commission, those issues. This is for those unique instances. We had one where we have a section, we already talked about it, minor and major subdivisions.
Mhm.
So a minor subdivision is a property, you're going to correct me on this, I hope, if I get this wrong, but it's any property that is less than 4 parcels. A minor is less than 5, so 4. There we go. I was getting there. I remembered, but it had to be on a public road. So any development that is less than 5 properties on a public road. We had a developer who had 5 properties, but it was on a private road. And because of the definition of a minor subdivision, we made the determination that it was a major subdivision, because the major subdivision has a provision about public or private roads, that sort of thing. They would have the opportunity to come to BZA and say, I believe it's a minor subdivision, not a major subdivision. And then the board can decide it from there.
So they sort of become the arbiters of.
Yeah, they're yeah.
Between the city and.
Yep.
And in terms of how that would be affected, like that one particularly, would that be the developer couldn't build because it's not allowed to be?
No, it was
major subdivision, or will he be taxed differently?
It was
or-
the process of getting approval,
Okay.
because a minor subdivision can go through administrative approval, Whereas a major subdivision has to go to planning commission, has to go to council.
A lot more
So
cost.
it adds more of a approval process on it.
So is that always, if the person who is trying to do the different subdivisions, is that how it normally goes? Is the person who's coming with the plan does the appeal, or can it be, like, who does it?
It would be the person that is applying for it,
Okay.
because the way it would work in practice is, say I come in with application saying my property, I'll use a different one instead of minor and major subdivision. I'm saying, I'll use the example of the one that passed about the tattoo parlor. We had a tattoo parlor coming in, and the tattoo parlor was not, the way our code was written, where they put their tattoo parlor was not zoned for that. It said that they could have medical services, but not personal services in that section. And the planning director at the time, and it wasn't Zach, it was the previous one, said, that's a personal service, not a medical service. They said, we disagree. They came to BZA and they said, look, a normal tattoo parlor would be a personal service. Our specific type of tattoo parlor is providing therapy to people who are in recovery. It is people who have experienced trauma, and they brought out their portfolio of business. They made the argument, and BZBA said, you're right. This is more of a medical service instead of a personal service. You're zoned appropriately. And at that point, they just then filled out the rest of the application and were processed without having to go anywhere else. So it depends on the situation, but they're the ones that appeal it.
In the
And they
case
got
of
more insight
subdivision,
knowledge.
yeah, they submitted a survey of the subdivision. I determined that was a major, and they appealed my determination. So
Okay.
that's what brought it to BZA.
Okay.
It doesn't happen all that often, but then it happened like in rapid succession. We had like 3 of them, 2 of them at one meeting, and we're like, wow, this is odd.
Right.
But then, knock on wood, we haven't heard from them in a while, like, in many appeals. So it's just another thing that we have a check and balance against officials. Now, I will say, this does not apply if it's the building code. This is specific to city ordinances, so there is a state board for state building a code. So if someone comes in and says, I want to build this, and our building official says, you don't meet building code, they don't go to the BZA, they go to the state building code, because they're the ones that have the authority to grant variances to building officials.
And that's public or private building? Like, let's say somebody
Both.
wants an addition on their house,
Both.
they would go that direction, okay.
Yeah, so we actually I was down at the state on an appeal we have from one here, but the rework center that they're building over there right off of Route 8, they needed an appeal because their building, the way it's situated, because it's the type of building it is and the square footage, it needs an elevator. But they said, hey, we have 2 entry levels at 2 different grades. Why should we have to put in an elevator to go from one to the other if we can still as accessibly get to either side, and the building's small enough that we don't need an elevator? So they had to go to the state to make that argument. So it applies to public buildings too, that if we were building something that was going to violate code, we couldn't just grant ourselves a variance
Yeah.
or, appeal. We'd have to appeal it to the state and get that from the state. So it's public and private.
We also hear appeals for orders of condemnation, which is.
That's true.
Issued by the building official.
That's by code though. That's not by
Yeah.
the charter.
Yeah, so they can hear those too.
And the city has a relatively new ordinance within the last year and a half, that every time a building is condemned, right when it's condemned, it's automatically appealed to the board. So our building official makes a determination, says this building is condemned, it's a dangerous building, and then it's certified by the board, as opposed to condemning it. And then if you want to fight it, you then have to go make the appeal, pay the appeal process. We made it that it's automatically appealed. And what I'll say is, we don't condemn all that many buildings here. And that's part of the reason but we wanted to set another stopgap, that it's not just one official going rogue condemning buildings left and right.
Yeah.
It's automatically appealed. on behalf of the property owner. Any questions on that? That brings us to the end of Article 11. So that is the two sections that we were tasked with looking at tonight.
Somebody else needed to say something for the camera, thanks.
All right,
Very enthralling.
up next we have town hall feedback. How did everyone think the town hall went?
It was fun sitting up on
Did you get any difficult questions from your wives and husbands, friends and
We had
children?
one question.
Yeah.
Did you get any questions? No questions?
We did have one question. That they-
We had one question around notice of meeting using email. And so would it be applicable that we include that section in there? That was the one comment that we got.
I think it was in addition to
Yes,
The postings.
social media.
and the current
posting.
postings, yeah.
Could everyone in Stow sign up for an email?
That's, yeah, it was a little,
So the way that I would say is it doesn't, currently it doesn't restrict the city from including meetings and newsletters. But if planning commission's meeting, we're meeting, civil services meeting, all these other commissions are meeting, and you just keep sending emails,
Drive everybody nuts.
it's gonna drive everyone nuts.
I would also point out too, that this provision isn't just about meeting notices.
Yeah.
It's also all resolutions, ordinances, statement notices. So you're gonna get, if you sign up for the email blast, you're going to get the entire legislation packet with every piece of legislation. When we buy a car, when we vote to pay the gas bill,
We
when
might
we
have
vote
everyone
to.
leave Stow.
I wanna throw that out there that might be lost on when we talk about having to post things.
The average.
This is all legislation as well. So on a social media post, we could say, hey, the agenda is available, click this link, go to the agenda.
It's 5 pages long.
Yeah, but if we're email blasting it, we're emailing out all the agendas, all the legislation.
Email that notice posted. Why would we have to blast that out? Why can't that just have a link to, here's the agenda? Here's what's on there, here's that.
Yeah, no, that we could do that.
I mean, just like, I mean, so and here would be the thing, so if you're posting the notice on social media, and you just said we're not gonna post all the legislation, all the documents, and blah, 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 right? The 5 pages, 10 pages, 15 pages, whatever it is, it's just a link to the website of where it's at. That could be the exact same message.
For the email. No, that's fair.
I have a
It would be the
question.
same thing, and I don't think there would be, I'm sorry, that
No,
there
it's
wouldn't be
okay.
anything, that we'd have to change in the language that would
Yeah,
restrict that.
no, I see what you're saying.
The notices that you can sign up for like the council agendas, planning commission agendas, do we happen to have like a stat of what percentage, like how many people actually sign up for that?
I could get that for you.
That'd be great.
I know we have
Because I
it.
feel, if it's like 0.2% of the population of Stow, I don't think it's worth it to do an email that people can sign up for. But if it's a lot of people and it would actually be used, then that might be something to consider, but.
Or what if it was an email that went out on Friday that said, here are the meetings scheduled for
The rest of the week or the rest of the month.
for next week?
Next week, okay.
And it was a list of those. And then there was a link, click here for
All the
documents. I don't
ordinances,
know
yeah.
how hard that would be to do, but
That's
that way,
much cleaner.
once a week, you get a thing and you can scan and see if any of those are of interest to you.
I like that idea. I think that's really reasonable and saves inboxes, but.
I mean, somebody has to
Involves
do it. I
people.
don't know how doable it is and how hard that is, but
Yeah, so I'm not against notifying people, I just don't know in that situation if it's a best practice or it should be a mandated practice. Like the idea of including in the charter, or that the city should take the opportunity to do those sort of things in a newsletter format for people that want to sign up for that information. We also, speaking to an expert on email distributions, we would have to review the terms of agreement that everyone currently that signed up for those, did they agree to getting those proper terms? Do we have to restart and completely scrap the entire list we have currently? It might be a much more complicated process. I'll be transparent, that expert is my wife, because that's what she does for a living,
But
is
it's,
deal with data management and laws.
but it's
So,
true.
And just a point of clarification, the individual that made that comment,
Yes, yeah,
that was also her profession.
yeah,
So she's well aware of
Yeah.
all the ins and outs and needs to get done, and I think she
Yeah.
made that comment specifically with the idea that it's manageable.
Yeah.
That it is manageable. And from a professional standpoint, my business I ran that
Yeah.
part of the business for the local utilities. So from a management standpoint, there's software, there's capabilities to do that. It's not hard to do. It's actually really simple. If you're posting it already on social media, the email is the exact same thing. There's not much to it. Again, though, in terms of use, things like that, you do have to manage it a little bit, but it's still manageable. It's not that much of a difference in management of a social media account.
But if we do emails, would it work like how we receive, for example, the council agenda, you know, like, hey, it's, you know, however many days before the meeting, here's the agenda for this week. Would it be that same platform of signing up for an email, or would it be something totally different?
I imagine the city would use that same platform. We wouldn't want to go out and acquire a different platform
Right,
and build a whole new email, list.
right. I'm
Just
just
for-
assuming, I'm just guessing like it would
Yeah.
just be another like thing that you can check to get notified about.
Yeah.
Like from that same.
And it's
What do we have to, Drew, just throwing something out? The idea is great when this is gonna be put on the agenda for planning commission, city, council or
Mhm.
whatever. But there's a very good chance that the next time that goes out, that same thing is going, because it's not going to get handled through the very first meeting. It could get pushed out to the second,
Yeah.
another third. So it would take somebody to manage all that, say, they get settled, so that's gonna be part of the agenda next week.
We also have our own management software for agendas to make sure that happens, that something that was only given a first reading automatically is switched to second reading on the next meeting agenda. We have an agenda management software that does that for us.
remind me the requirement of notice for public meeting,
It's,
what's the time period?
so for council agendas, it's 3 days.
Okay.
Now they set their regular
Okay.
schedule.
Let's use a referral of like our commission, like what's the notice for?
3 days.
3 days.
3 days.
Okay, so if we wanted to meet on a Monday morning and the email would need to go out Thursday then.
Correct.
But it needs to be posted on the website.
Yeah.
It needs to be posted on social media.
Yeah.
3 days ahead of time.
Yeah, I was just
That's-
trying to,
yeah.
And to Drew's, or not, you're Drew, to Dennis's point, I would not propose changing the charter to include that, because who knows, 10 years from now, email could be very passé.
That's true.
And to enshrine that in the charter, but as you said, make it a best practice and a recommendation and something that maybe this city
Social
can
media
do.
could also be,
Gone.
you're right.
I could even look to see if this is something, we might already be doing this. Automatically sending emails with all of the agendas and the resolutions on it.
Often.
I think
Yeah.
if you sign up on Granicus to view the stuff as a outside person, not somebody with the, like administration passwords and everything, you can sign up to have those
Sent to you?
sent to
Okay.
you. I don't know what that looks like, cause I don't need it, but
Because we have the administrative powers.
but I assume that it provides the stuff that would be getting sent out via email.
So how about this? How about I posit you guys' homework to get on Granicus, which is the city, it's on the city website.
Okay.
That's the software we use for our agenda management. See if there is already a place for a member of the public to sign up to receive those, because we might be talking around in circles
Yeah.
with something that's already been done for the last 3
It'd be
years.
really funny if we came up with what already.
Yeah. You know, we should do this. You're right.
I thought of this all on my own without knowing it was already there.
So, but you brought up some good points. The word of social media platforms versus is social media going to be there in 10 years? Do we maybe change that to, we do specifically state website in the charter.
Mhm.
Do we change social media to state electronic platforms currently being used by the city versus social media platforms? Is there a differentiation there? Does that
I think
make it
there is.
broad enough to, does that broaden it up so that then any changes would, or, you know, in 5 years, do we review and just?
Wonder what electronic platforms, like what that means in the terms of.
Yeah, what is
Here's
that?
what this is going to, I took a cyber law class and when I was in law school. And basically
Of course
one
you
of the, I was very interested in it.
It's so nerdy cool.
What a,
Bye, take care.
Just leave it on the table.
what I'll tell you, what you guys are grappling with is what the federal government has been grappling with for about 80 years now. And that you try and legally define things, and by the time you've gotten it all worked out and you enshrine it, it's now a new thing. So the topic of conversation is always the Communications Decency Act, and that is regulating things online. That was written originally for radio.
Oh.
Radio transmissions back in the 30s. And we have just then spliced it and we use it for television because in the 70s, network television became a thing. And then in the 90s, we said, all right, well, the internet applies to this as well. So it's not a great, and it like, you guys are doing exactly what you should be doing, trying to define things. Just realize the law is not going to keep up with technology.
Right, yeah.
No matter how hard you try.
So you
So-
get those really awkward hearings.
Yes.
We have a
Social
charter
media.
review commission
Keep-
every 5 years.
Exactly. So I recommend keep trying and keep asking these questions. Just realize that this is not a unique problem that you guys are having of trying to define things and make sure you're thinking progressively and into the future. It's not just we're doing it for today. You're trying to think that. Just realize it's very difficult to predict.
You can sign up for email. You put your email address in, submit it, and you can sign up for email
Oh, we're done.
updates to access your subscriber preferences.
I didn't assign it to you,
I want to congratulate Hannah for going above and beyond to save the commission additional work, when she could do it just right here. So
I also
Thank you.
get them emails and I've never signed up for it, so I also
Thank
get them.
I appreciate you.
Yeah,
Sign up something.
Well done,
Awesome.
Hannah, well done.
yes,
Okay.
you can
Homework
sign up.
check.
So what is included? Is there like a whole checklist?
It says
of
meetings
things?
are arranged by the date with the most recent at the top, click video to listen to the meeting and view agenda, or agenda minutes to see the documents.
And that's for
To sign
any and
up,
all?
I don't know if this is just, that's what I was gonna ask, if it's just council, because it's under,
it's just
it's
city
just
council.
under council, so this is, but if everything's submitted through Granicus,
You would get planning commission and
Correct.
BZA too.
because they use that.
Yeah,
So it's
because
whoever uses Granicus in the city, I would assume.
Which I think is just council,
Planning
planning
commission,
commission and
BZA.
BZA.
Because the rest of them are all, but everything else is.
Signed up through that will get notification.
hey, the agenda was just
Mhm.
released for the finance committee and here's,
Yeah.
and that has the link to all, it's the agenda, but then if you click on the agenda, it has the actual wording of every piece of legislation you can click on.
So does the Arts Commission need to give public notice?
Yeah, they do
They
need to give,
do,
yeah,
okay,
but
so,
keep in mind too, this section applies to council, this section of the charter. It's
okay.
not everything, it's not every board commission,
Oh, that's right.
it is just council.
Just back, yeah, okay.
Going back to statutory
Yeah,
interpretation.
sorry. You reminded us after we looked at it so long ago, so
No, that's a good point.
That's what I'm here for.
thank you.
Cool.
Do we want to see it, does anyone want to see it changed? Wonder what we currently drafted.
Can you imagine putting on the ballot that we're gonna send emails in the next?
Everyone vote no. Stop flooding my inbox.
Exactly.
I'm on a list.
Right. Big brother and.
Yeah.
We've been trying to reach you about your car warranty.
But I think when we
And your
talk,
unpaid tolls.
right, I think when we talk about this, I do think we should talk about best practice.
Yeah.
And I agree with that aspect of it. Because we are going to say, you don't have to post more than 3 places, but if you can find more than 3 places, that's a good post, it makes sense.
Well, it's just like when Ashland used to let them post.
Yeah.
Fackney let them post again, I think,
They would
I
do
would
it.
think I would want to have it posted
Yes.
at a place where there's
People.
thousands of people coming in on a regular basis.
So I
Because that's
think,
better traffic than any
I
of
don't
our
know
city
about-
buildings.
I don't know if Acme's getting, that much traffic. Sorry.
No, it's like, no.
I mean, 1,000 people in a week is less
I
than,
know.
less than 150 people a day, so,
Mine is still-
yeah.
yeah, point being,
taken.
I think that when we have our discussion, this is a review of the discussion we
Yeah.
had with the commission, this is what we got feedback from the community. This is what we think would be
Right.
best practice for it, so.
Because let's face it, we're still all struggling without the Sentry to know how to reach the
Yep.
community. I mean, for as much as we like to make fun of the Sentry, it was useful.
Mhm.
I loved the Sentry.
I did too, because it was, you see stuff about your neighbors, your neighbor's
Put in here to
kid.
start another mandatory paper. And we'll tax everyone a penny to fund it.
Oh, no, no.
Now you're voting to
All
increase
right,
taxes?
so moving on to the next piece of things, let's not talk about taxing anyone. That is not what this meeting is about.
I couldn't
God,
resist, there was a big red button. I
People,
couldn't
people are gonna hear taxes and
We
show up
need-
to the
we need
next meeting.
We need a dump button for
We're
Christina.
just- we're just trying to get
Like the radio dump buttons for Christina.
Dump button.
Dump button.
The dump button of like, that they press in radio to like,
I got
all right, sorry, dump button.
You know, when you're listening to WNIR, he just
No,
bleeps you out when you're arguing with him?
Yeah, yeah, the censor button,
I would feel so honored. I would feel so honored.
the Christina
5
button.
sec, we need a 5
Okay.
second delay.
Any other feedback from the town hall that anyone thought?
Was that really about the only big
That was
question?
the only
Yeah,
question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a second town hall scheduled, don't we?
We haven't not scheduled it yet. That's what we're gonna talk
Planned,
about.
but not scheduled, yeah.
Yeah, planned, yeah.
I was
Spoken
gonna
like
ask
an
also
attorney.
about
Planned.
our next meetings, since I've missed the last 2, if we scheduled any
We
more
have
now.
not.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna do that today as well, so. I guess we can also choose now at this point as well, the items that we had already drafted that we presented at town hall. Do we want to vote to send those to council now? And get them off?
Do we have, were they the ones that we presented last night, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just be the ones that we had presented.
Aren't you changing the mayor and the law director ones?
The finance director and the law director.
Which we had not
That-
discussed
Yeah,
yet,
those
so.
were just as potential in the future.
Yeah.
So there were the 3 that were presented last night.
Drew, can you read off
Yeah.
the 3 for us again, just to make sure that everyone is aware?
You got it.
Thank you.
So the first one, and remember the first one had 2 versions to it. Oh, you know what, let me, it's actually so this is section 20.01, composition and term of the Charter Review Commission.
Oh, okay.
So the version 1 just had the switching the date from August 1 to July 1. Version 2 had the section 2 where it says that in January 1980 and each 5 years thereafter, the mayor shall, with confirmation by council, appoint, and this is the added language, by the last city council meeting in January of the year in which the Charter Review Commission shall convene, a commission of 7. So that's saying that you guys have to be confirmed by the last meeting in January so that the meetings start in end of January, beginning of February. That's version 2.
But version 2 also has the change to July.
Correct, yep.
Yeah,
Yep,
They're both in
it has
July
both
1.
of those, yeah.
Do we wanna,
I like version 2 better.
I second version 2.
So
can I get a motion to?
Motion to move version 2 of that blah, blah, blah ordinance,
20.01.
20.01.
20.01 to council.
Second?
I second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Awesome. All right, that one can go off to council. Perfect.
What's the process, I guess, for getting it to council? We would give it to them, get on the next meeting?
They have to do 3 readings.
Yeah, they would do 3 readings on this one. So what they would do is they will assign it to a committee. It'll be, my guess is it'll be assigned to committee as a whole, which is all of the council. They then would discuss it in the committee, and then the committee would vote to place it on the agenda for a first reading.
Okay.
It would be read at 3 meetings, and then they would approve it. And then once it's approved and certified, they then send it to the Board of Elections to place on the ballot.
I assume that some of us would then want to be present at said?
Yeah, I think the first meeting, when it's at the committee, that's when they would discuss it. That's when they'd ask questions. And I think that's when it would be good to have Charter Review Commission,
Okay.
as many members that want to be there.
Okay.
To
And
speak
you'll
on
just
behalf.
notify when it's
Yep.
on there. Okay.
What I'll tell you right now is because we're having our meeting tonight, the next meeting is next Thursday. The deadline to submit council items is tomorrow at noon. So if we
Okay.
vote, I can get these items submitted tomorrow morning so they can be on the next council meeting.
So just,
Or I can hold it for the meeting after. It's entirely up to the
so when's the
commission.
next meeting after that one then? The
That's the
24th?
24th, yeah.
Of April.
I would just share that I would not be able to be here for the 10th meeting. So I just, if there's
I'll
other people that
be-
are willing to talk about these items.
I'll be traveling that all of next week. I leave on Friday.
Can you be there?
I could be there. Yeah, that'd be no problem.
Okay, can you be willing to talk about them?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool, great. Great, so we know.
All right, so we'll get it, we'll put it on for the next week's
But,
meeting.
I mean, just, if y'all wanna be there too, and we wanna push it off, that's fine too. I don't.
Here's the other thing too,
I'm available to do it.
we can submit it and I can say, hey, these have been submitted, but we would like to hold these in committee until the next meeting when more of the commission members can be here to
Would
speak.
that still
We can-
count as the second reading or?
It would
just the
not.
first reading?
No,
That
let's
would not.
keep stuff moving.
But
Let's keep.
But it's gotta go to the committee of the whole first.
Yeah.
Correct,
They don't need 3 readings.
not in committee as a whole.
Right. So they just need to talk about it, discuss it. If they want, they can hold a public hearing on it.
Yeah,
They can do whatever they want with it.
they could put it on for a first reading and then still continue talking about it at the meeting
Okay,
after.
cool.
Yeah, so I
So
mean, I'd say we go ahead and do it.
let's move it, yeah.
I'll make sure that I'm there. I think we just make sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty.
Yeah. Well, that way, in case there's additional conversation, then more of us can come back.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's,
This is-
I guess we could choose initially for some of these just to send, make sure at least one of us are there. And then if it is one that's more challenging, that
More of us, yeah.
more of us are there.
Yeah.
410, yeah.
All right, great. So yes, we can submit that tomorrow morning then.
All right, so that one will be submitted. The next one is the section 3.06, the acting mayor. This is the one where we didn't change much of the wording. We just kind of switched how it was arranged. So I'm going to read how it's drafted now, okay? President of council shall become the acting mayor with all the powers of the mayor in the event the mayor is temporarily absent from the municipality, inaccessible, unavailable for any cause or reason to perform the duties of mayor, or until council elects a mayor in the event of the vacancy of said office, as said procedures are set forth in section 3.07 hereunder. And then this is the new added language. In the event that the president of council, while acting in the capacity of acting mayor, is temporarily absent from the municipality, inaccessible, unable for any cause or reason to perform the duties of mayor, or until council elects a mayor in the event of the vacancy of said office, as said procedures are set forth in section 3.07 here and under, then council shall choose by a majority vote a designee from their membership to serve as acting mayor. And then it also will keep any member of council performing the duties of acting mayor shall relinquish his or her council voting power on any motion or legislation. Again, doesn't change the operation, it just clarifies the language.
So it doesn't change the operation, it clarifies the language, so that there's no question, leaves no doubt. as to Exactly what this states and what we want to do. So there's no, I mean, obviously there would be appeal, there would be a lawsuit, whatever. But this would make it a lot clearer to defend, a lot clearer to interpret, a lot clearer to.
Absolutely. I think it clarifies the intention of the original
Yeah.
clause.
I move that we approve this and send it to council.
I second.
Any discussion on it? All those in favor?
I,
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, passes and adjourned.
All right, and the third piece, this is the public notice section that we were talking about. So, public notice, it's section 412, entitled Public Notice, and all that the change is that it says, I'll read the full sentence. It's a run-on sentence. We lawyers are great, aren't we? Unless precluded by law from doing so, public notice as required by law or by this charter or by resolution or ordinance shall be given resolutions, ordinances, statements, notices, measures, orders, proclamations, and reports in the manner determined by council, except that if public posting is selected as the medium, then a public posting on the city's website, and here's the added language, and any other social media platforms utilized by the city for notice purposes, and then this goes back to how it's currently written, and no less than 3 as opposed to 6 public places in the municipality shall be established for such public posting.
I recommend we pass this.
So move.
I move that we pass this.
second.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes unanimously. All right, up next, next meeting, let's talk about when we'll meet and then we can kind of go through what we're gonna put on the agenda. So, I hear that traveling all next week. I know I am out completely next week. So, that doesn't mean that we can't still meet next week, or you all can't meet next week with 5 people, so. I do enjoy just keeping things on the tracks as much as possible, keep things chugging along, so.
So when we look at, and I just wanna make sure that, let's go back to, okay, so we still have Civil Service Commission, which is Article 12. Gotta remember my Roman numerals. Parks and Recs, which is 13, Cemetery, which is 14. Those seem to be fairly easy to get.
Yeah.
And I would imagine you can get through that. No offense without you guys.
I'm pretty sure that.
But, and I don't anticipate large changes or anything along those lines. I think once we get to 15, 16, this is where we want to talk. Finance maybe probably not that big a deal, but the rest in terms of 16, we've talked about nominations and elections. That's when we start talking about term limits.
Yeah.
We might want to revisit wards. We might want to revisit or visit the like rent choice vote as an example. I think those are large discussions that could take not just 1 or 2 meetings, but multiple meetings. I would prefer to have as much of the commissioners here for those basic topics than not. So I would, and since we are in April, I would propose we do have a meeting next week.
Okay.
As much as we can. Get through the rest of the commissions and boards. And then knowing that the following week we would start jumping into these rest of these topics.
Maybe.
Drew, can I make one, or can I ask one question with
Yeah.
finances, insurance on checks? Just, I know jumping,
Yeah.
when we plan, is there any potential issues or challenges in that?
No, so I was gonna kind of jump off of Rick's point there, that
12, 13,
I would,
14, 15?
yeah, I would go through 15.
Okay.
Finance is a very brief
Cool.
section, not to jump too much ahead, but the limitation on tax, that just says we have like a certain millage for public safety, and if anything above that, we have to go back and ask the voters for it. So that's a pretty quick one. Signatures on checks, just saying that the mayor and the finance director have to sign checks, pretty minor one. And then same thing with Stow taxpayer bill of rights. It says that if we change the income tax rate, we have to go to the voters. So again, very quick, we can get through those with those as
Okay.
well.
Yeah, I would
You may
agree.
want to even add on section 18,
Yeah.
which is the franchise section. That one is a very technical, state code driven section.
Rick will be very, very familiar with it because of his work in public utilities, but.
I actually read this section about 10 times. I have a book of questions.
Okay.
That I'll be coming with, so be prepared.
Then I was gonna say, let's kick that one out then.
So then maybe we,
Because my Puco is not super.
so then maybe we include 18 on that one
I
too.
think so,
Just
yeah.
so we
I'm okay
cover
with that.
12, 13, 14, 15, and 18 next week. So
Yeah.
It sounds like they'll be pretty quick sections to get through.
We could
Alright.
even, and then I'm throwing this out there as an option too, just because I've read through all these sections. It might, if we're thinking that the section on elections and referendum and all that are gonna be a big topic, we could probably not next meeting, the meeting after, knock out Article 21 and 22, general provisions and budgeting procedures.
Okay.
So all we have left are the big election stuff.
And we could start with one of the bigger sections just to review so that we can start having you guys work on some items.
Yeah, okay.
Just to start the process of because we can keep working on it. I'll be honest, I'll be unavailable the next 2 weeks totally. So that's where,
Okay.
so next week, when are the 5 or the 4 people that are here in the room right now available to meet? So
Monday,
that,
Tuesday, Wednesday.
you have a Tuesday
I can't
commitment right
do
now?
Tuesdays.
Okay, so Wednesday?
Because I'm trying, we get a second.
Yeah, next week,
I can
next
do Monday
Wednesday.
and
Wednesday the 9th.
Either one is fine.
I'd prefer Wednesday.
Okay.
If we could do Wednesday, you guys are okay with that?
Denny?
Wednesday the 9th is fine.
Okay. So let's do Wednesday the 9th.
Perfect. Good, because I had a conflict Monday.
Okay.
Oh,
I could reschedule if I need to, but
And 6:30 still works for everyone?
Do we wanna do another one?
Yep, we're gonna, yeah,
Okay,
that's-
sorry.
no, you're good. I like it. I love it.
Tax
So,
day?
no,
I already filed. I'm good.
I just signed my paperwork to file today, so.
Everyone's filed their city income tax too, right?
That's a whole new
Right.
ballgame for me now.
Do
so
not forget that we have a city income
I
tax.
have another piece of paperwork to do again
Okay.
this week, because my job no longer collects any sort of taxes and moves it across anywhere, so.
Well, the fine people upstairs will be happy to help you.
I know, and I'm really not excited about that first quarterly payment I figured out. So,
They are helpful.
they are helpful.
They are very.
No, they're so much better than any other tax agency I've ever worked with,
Yeah.
so.
15th and the 16th, the room is booked in here, so we would have to go somewhere else.
Okay.
So
We could go in council chambers if we
Do we
need
know
to.
if Amy's available next week?
She did not say.
Yeah.
She did not tell me.
Wait a minute. No,
There's 4
so
of you,
There's 4.
there's 4 of you,
okay,
that's,
Right,
let's
it's
make
only
sure the
2
4,
of you
yeah.
that can't be here. Don't worry.
all right, so the week of, do we wanna do the 16th then?
I'm okay with the 16th. That's just.
I'm okay with the 16th.
Counter services, Bulldog Bags, there's a
That
meeting
one.
in here, but we can go executive session or
We could do executive session or mayor's conference room
Or the war room too.
or the war room.
Yeah, we would just be upstairs.
So, a room,
Yeah, we'll have a room here
We'll have
at
a
City
room
Hall,
on
but
the
so the 16th at 6:30?
16th works? All right,
Silting six.
so the 5 of you are able to be here on the 16th though?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, I just wanna make sure that we're good with quorum there too.
I shall be there.
So we just need to make sure, we probably wanna make sure Amy knows that she's running the next 2 meetings too.
You got it.
So.
I will talk to her tomorrow.
For the 16th, what are you guys discussing then on the 16th? Cause I have 12, 13, 14, 15, and 18, so the
That's-
9th.
21 and 22.
And then
And we might,
we should start reading through 16. And then we can, that way and knowing it's gonna be a longer section, questions can be asked, and then when we have everyone together,
So the 16th is gonna be 21 and 22.
and 16 will be.
well, yeah,
16 will be on the agenda, but,
start doing your research for
Yeah.
16 as well.
Yeah.
How about that?
and that'll just get us started on that process. So, okay, so, and then let's just work through the end of the month then. 23rd work? When do you start golf?
I actually start golf on the 30th.
Okay.
But I have garden tickets that day, so
Okay.
free.
Yeah.
I can't get those off.
That week I am tied up Monday and Tuesday.
Are we talking about the week of the 21st?
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's my last week of having a Tuesday night.
And
meeting, so-
22 and 23 I have commitments, so.
The 24th.
24th, Thursday,
It's
24th?
council.
Hate to do it on Friday,
So maybe we just need to skip that week? I know it sucks, but
I'll say, you guys are moving at a pretty good clip too. So we do have time, if you have to skip a week, we do have the ability.
Okay.
but I say let's skip a week.
let's skip a week. That gives us some time to digest some other pieces too, and then we can ramp up the next.
Yeah.
Alright, so you said you start the 30th, right?
Yes.
So looking at Tuesdays,
We can start doing Tuesdays on the
29th?
Perfect.
That'd be awesome.
Tuesday the 29th it is then, sounds good.
Perfect.
So that gets us through the end of the month.
What's on the agenda for this one?
I think we wait, so
Whatever's
it's,
left.
well,
I
what's,
Yeah, we're starting.
16, 17?
Starting 16. It's gonna take a while. There's not much to 16 in there. You'll see there's not a lot written there, but that's the bulk of, I'm assuming, if you want to talk about term limits and ranked choice voting and.
can we
terms.
include 16 and 17 on that day?
Oh, yeah.
That way, if we do move at a faster clip, we're prepared, because we can always delay and move it to the next meeting if we
Correct, we
don't
don't
get to
finish
it.
the discussion.
I'd rather have it on the agenda and then not get to it than not have it on the agenda and have time to
Right.
get to it.
Yep, we can be prepared. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, 'cause that one looks really easy.
And so
Yeah,
16, 17, and 18 are our,
Well, 18 we're knocking out next meeting.
yeah, so 16,
16 and 17 are the last two.
yeah, so we can plow through, because we're on pace to get through our stuff by June 1st.
Yeah, we are.
So if we continue to meet every week in May, I think our self guideline of June 1st, then we get off to council, and then if council kicks anything back or wants us to potentially review, we can go back and continue meetings to review things or make edits or hold more town halls or.
Well, I think the next one, we want to come back and pick up about law director and finance director.
Yeah, I'll have
Get
that.
some clarification on
Yeah.
those, because those are almost ready to go.
Yep.
I mean,
We,
almost like law director's ready already, since there's
Well-
already a deputy, but.
Yeah, I want to add in that language though about the mayor appointing if there's no deputy.
That's it.
and we already discussed it at the town hall that was gonna be a topic and explained what that would look like. So I feel comfortable sending it to council at that point.
Yep.
All right, on that, motion, any other business or any public comment? Any other business? All right, can you get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, thanks all.
Thank you.
Lovely.
I appreciate you all.
I appreciate
This is
you.
nice and effective.
It is.
Council meeting is